What would you do if you had only 90 days to live? For one man, the answer was simple. Spend every remaining moment making strangers' dreams come true. In the quiet town of Meadowbrook, nestled between rolling hills and whispering forests, lived a man named Thomas Gray. At 68, Thomas was known for his reclusive nature, having spent most of his life as a librarian. His days were filled with the rustle of pages and the soft murmur of readers, and his nights were solitary, accompanied only by the ticking of an old grandfather clock. One chilly autumn morning, Thomas received news that would change the course of his life. He was diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer, with an estimated 3 months to live. The prognosis was grim, and the doctors offered little hope. Returning home, Thomas sat in his favorite armchair, the weight of the diagnosis pressing heavily upon him. He pondered the life he'd led, quiet, uneventful, and, in many ways, unremarkable. But as the sun cast golden hues across the room, a thought sparked within him. Perhaps it wasn't too late to make a difference. That evening, Thomas penned a list titled Dreams to Fulfill. But these weren't his dreams. They were the dreams of others, strangers he'd overheard in the library, stories from the local newspaper, and tales shared by patrons over the years. From a young boy wishing to see the ocean to an elderly woman longing to dance once more, Thomas's list grew, each entry a testament to unfulfilled desires. With a renewed sense of purpose, Thomas set out on his mission. He began by selling his modest home, his collection of rare books, and even his cherished vintage car. The funds would go entirely toward making these dreams a reality. His first endeavor led him to a local nursing home, where he met Margaret, an 82-year-old former ballerina who hadn't danced in decades. With the help of a local dance studio, Thomas arranged a special evening where Margaret, adorned in a flowing gown, danced gracefully under twinkling lights, her spirit youthful once more. Word of Thomas's acts of kindness spread throughout Meadowbrook. He became a beacon of hope, a reminder that it's never too late to make a difference. As the days passed, Thomas continued his mission, each fulfilled dream adding meaning to his remaining days. The morning mist still clung to the earth as Thomas Gray stood at the town's edge, a printed list folded neatly in his coat pocket. He looked around, bare trees, gray skies, and the quiet hum of a waking town. Every breath reminded him that time was not his friend. He had 83 days left, maybe fewer. His next stop was a modest, red-brick school nestled between a park and a gas station. Inside, the corridors buzzed with youth, backpacks, sneakers, laughter. Thomas moved quietly past classrooms until he found a door with a cartoon whale painted on it. Room 103, Ms. Jenkins' third-grade class. Ms. Jenkins welcomed him in, recognizing the older gentleman from his many visits to the town library. "Heard you're doing some amazing things, Mr. Gray," she said kindly. "I just want to talk to one of your students, if that's all right." He found Charlie sitting near the back of the room, a boy of 9 with tousled brown hair and eyes that held a mixture of mischief and melancholy. He had always visited the library with his grandmother, quietly reading books about ships, waves, and deep-sea creatures. Thomas knelt beside his desk. "Hey, Charlie, remember me?" Charlie nodded. "You're the library man." "That's me," Thomas smiled. "I read something once, that when you see the ocean for the first time, it stays with you forever. Is that true?" Charlie's eyes sparkled. "I wouldn't know. I've never seen it." Thomas placed a hand on the boy's desk. "Would you like to?" The next week, Thomas stood outside Charlie's house with a rented minivan. Charlie's mother, a single parent who worked double shifts, hesitated at first. But Thomas had already paid for everything: hotel, meals, even a little aquarium tour. 3 days later, they stood on the shores of the Atlantic Ocean. Charlie's feet sank into the sand as he stared, mouth slightly open. The waves rolled in like living things, full of sound and movement. The wind caught in his hair, and for a moment the boy looked timeless, like he belonged there. "This is amazing," he whispered. "Better than I dreamed." Thomas felt something wet touch his face. He thought it was sea spray, until he realized it was a tear. They spent hours walking along the shore. Charlie gathered shells, laughed at diving seagulls, and even dared to get his feet wet. They visited the nearby aquarium, where Charlie met a dolphin and named it Toby. He slept that night curled into a hotel blanket, whispering ocean sounds in his sleep. Back in Meadowbrook, Thomas crossed off another dream on his list. The list was shrinking, but so were his days. The doctor's appointments were fewer now, not because he didn't need them, but because he didn't want them. He had made peace with the idea that his time was borrowed and it was meant to be spent. The name had been scribbled in faded pencil on a paper napkin. Thomas had overheard the young waitress years ago talking about her voice and how she used to sing before her father passed away. Life and bills had stolen that dream. He visited the diner. Emily still worked there. "Remember when you said you wanted to sing at the fall festival?" he asked as she brought him coffee. She laughed. "That was 5 years ago. I barely sing. In the shower now." Thomas handed her a flyer. "You're the opening act this Saturday. It's already arranged." Saturday arrived. Lights were strung across the park, and a small crowd gathered. Emily stood on stage, shaking slightly, guitar in hand. Thomas watched from a bench near the front. She sang a haunting version of Landslide. Her voice trembled at first, but grew with every line. The crowd grew silent, then cheers, applause. After the performance, Emily rushed to Thomas, eyes wide. "I didn't think I could do it," she said breathlessly. "You didn't just do it," Thomas replied. "You reminded them, and yourself, who you are." Nathan was a shy man who frequented the library's romance novel section. He had once confided in Thomas that he wanted to propose to his girlfriend in a magical way, but couldn't afford anything beyond a quiet dinner. Thomas called in a favor. The town's fireworks vendor owed him for storing fireworks in the library basement years ago. The result? A lakeside proposal. Fireworks blooming over the water. Nathan on one knee, his girlfriend gasping, hands covering her face. She said yes, Nathan shouted across the lake. Thomas clapped softly, his heart full, though his chest hurt from the strain. Every night Thomas returned home to his rented apartment, a place that felt emptier now. The walls didn't hold memories the way his old home did, but they were less important now. His bed was firm. His body ached. Some nights he couldn't sleep from the pain, but when he looked at the list on his wall, it gave him strength. By day 40, Thomas had fulfilled 26 dreams. A man paralyzed from the waist down got to ride a horse again. A woman who'd lost her wedding ring had it remade by a local jeweler. A teenager got his first camera and a photography lesson from a pro. Every dream was a tiny resurrection. But it wasn't all joy. There were dreams Thomas couldn't fulfill. One name on his list was already deceased. Another had moved far away. And one, a homeless man named Ray, who always wanted to see his daughter again, refused help. "I don't deserve a second chance," Ray had muttered. Thomas sat with him for hours, sharing coffee, even when Ray didn't say a word. Not every story had a happy ending, but Thomas still believed presence was a gift.